Attention all citizens. Big Brother is watching. And Big Brother is you? As social media becomes a staple within our world, at the same time that communal institutions crumble, we're seeing the rise of netizens documenting any and everything about themselves, offering their personal lives up on a silver platter. But just how far is everyone willing to go as we continue to integrate new social platforms into our lives? And what does that say about the fate of future generations? This episode is the first edition of our new series on VS called The Kids Are Not Alright, with episodes aimed at analyzing the reasons for Gen Z's increasing lack of community. So sit back and relax as we start examining the whys and whats of this generation's social interactions. I don't know what I was going through 6 years ago today, but when I checked my Snapchat flashbacks, I had posted I have shit to do today, and then a coffee cup and then the little S for streaks. And I used to be so obsessed with streaks, and I feel like I brought that creativity to other social platforms when I inevitably grew older. But I would draw trees, I would do oceans, I would put music in the back. It used to be so serious for my streaks. Those people did not deserve me.
No, Snapchat memories are a lawless place. Why are you creating a collage of somebody's 16th birthday and the time I was crying on my bedroom floor to show me on a random Tuesday afternoon when I had no intention of being reminded by this?
Snapchat will show you the worst memories, and they never choose the good ones. It's never something oh my God, it's rarely that. It's always wow, my hairstyle, I looked crazy here.
No, remember when your outfit was fucked up? Oh, you don't? Well, now you do. And yeah, it's just so interesting to see how Snapchat was just larger than life at a certain point.
For sure.
And now it's kind of started to just fade into obscurity as competitors have taken it out of the game. And now having a Snapchat, asking for somebody from their Snapchat has a very diabolical aura to it. Mm-hmm. Very now I feel like this person has nefarious intent.
Oh, for sure. When guys ask me for my Snapchat, I definitely do not like it. But at the same time, guys, I keep the Snapchat for the memes. It's
after
just
we
because
just shat on the memes, but it's all right.
Yeah, but it's just I do keep it for the memes because it's just even if they were all great memes, I think I'm just too lazy to go through the process of manually downloading all of my memories, and then also the storage that's gonna take up. I know I should technically put it on a hard drive and just keep it as a documentation of this is what Ileana looked like in middle school and early high school, but I'm just too lazy, so I just keep the app even though I do nothing on it.
Actually, that's very true. The majority of the reason that I have Snapchat is because I just don't want to clear up that storage on my phone.
It's also good for taking pictures. I like taking pictures on Snapchat.
They don't flip the camera. Yeah, I love a good selfie on Snapchat.
For sure. But at the same time, I feel as we're in this new age of social media, people are willing to not only take pictures of themselves, but pictures of everybody else because, Lord, you can't go anywhere without the fear of potentially being photographed.
But actually, though, people don't even understand what Snapchat stories did to Gen Z psyche. That literally just changed. A flip was switched, and now everybody need to post on their reels. You can't go anywhere without. It's just literally moved on to other apps as we move to new frontiers, whether it's be Instagram Reels or TikTok. I can't even go out to the grocery store when you live in a city because I'm somebody with a mic about to approach you. 100,000 people are on live. What did you think about the presidential election?
Shout out to that lady who approached us in Target. We got a free puzzle out of it though, guys, but we definitely have to say hi to her live. I also think we lied about our names.
Whole time I got one Air Force on, one Croc on, and my shirt got a stain on it. Please leave me alone.
My hair lady does the same. Everybody does it. I'm oh my God, guys, what if I just want to vibe? vibe. But like yesterday I did a deep dive on what a panopticon is, and I feel like it ties in really well with today's topic because it's basically a prison. And it's supposed to be quote unquote the ideal prison because on every level, there are these little like guard towers, but the prisoners cannot see into the guard towers. And it's only like 27 guards, but there's like 96 prisoners to each guard. So the prisoners think that the guard might be watching them at any time, so they behave as if the guard is watching them at any time, even though realistically, like the guard can only really see like 1 or 2 prisoners at a time and is just walking along the level. But once again, they don't know when the guard is going to be watching them or not, so they're supposed to be on their best behavior. And whoo, child, like I just felt like that was such an accurate take on social media of today.
A recipe for a slow descent into paranoia, which I'm sure they went through, and we might be next. So in terms of our discussion, we just wanted to talk about, like, let's just define what is surveillance. Like, why are we even so, like, turned up about the idea of people being obsessed with posting stories or recording their everyday? And surveillance is just a close observation or watch kept over a person or group, but usually it's particularly for the desire to monitor this group's behaviors and activities for the purpose of like influencing, managing, and directing, or even protecting others or oneself. Like it usually has some kind of motivation behind it, which is why Ileana used the example of prisoners. And obviously in today's day and age, we usually associate surveillance with cameras, data tracking on devices, your bank purchases, and like companies knowing how you spend your money, the federal government knowing what you do. But traditionally, it was more so with government law and the way people were allowed to move and how much restriction they had in order for the government to be able to watch them and keep an eye on them. And also espionage, which is just like, spying happens a lot during wars, where they would send somebody in their intelligence agency to collect information about a country or a particular world leader.
Do a Russian accent.
Now,
I'm an international super spy.
The word would be fired on the first day. So espionage also can, I guess, be seen in like today's day and age, private investigators. Like, oh, you think your man cheating? Don't even worry. Like, they will find him and they somehow will find out. I mean, it literally happened with those 2 Good Morning America news anchors.
Oh my God, you just unlocked a memory. First of all, I always wondered how PIs don't get their ass beat. Like, I constantly, like, how do you not feel in danger by this line of profession? Like,
well, don't be snitching after I just helped you. Like, Jared from We Gon' Catch Him, let me know. Like, just like, whoa, like, let's keep it cute. So some instances of federal surveillance and like some of the history behind it, like we could see as early as the 1700s with lantern laws that required Black, Indigenous, and any like mixed race people to carry lit lanterns after sundown if they were not accompanied by a white person, because they did not want them gathering, coming to conclusions without white people around, and obviously trying to suppress any like idea of a revolution. So yeah, that definitely was some of the like earlier signs of it. Or even like when we think about the census, like the census, its entire point is to collect information on the entire populace. And the first census was actually in 1790, and it was collecting information on free males above the age of 16 before it started to be more broadly applied. And in the 1700s, there was also the Alien and Sedition Acts, and that's where we even see our modern day ICE and deportation laws come from, was the idea that if you were immigrating to the United States, but it was from a country at war, or you had some kind of nefarious intent, that they could remove you from the United States. And most famously, slave patrols, which was like literally meant to make sure that you guys, like slaves, were not meeting up in large groups. And again, trying to suppress any kind of revolution by getting information on these groups and making sure that they are ready and planned for anything that they may try to do. And now we see it kind of in later history, and when we start moving into technology, wires and wiretapping was one of the main things. Like the first wiretapping actually occurred in New York, and there was later on a 1916 wiretapping scandal that presented clear information that police in New York were using wiretapping in order to keep track of not only criminals, but to subdue labor activism in the state. And when we get to modern day, you really see Google, Meta, other data platforms that directly cooperate with the government and the state to allow them access to internet searches as well as other social media activity. And if you are accused of a crime and they have evidence, like they will want to search not only your house, but these days also your devices. And that is actually what leads to some of the most damning and incriminating evidence available.
And oftentimes when we think about surveillance, it has a very negative connotation, for good reason oftentimes, but we also see it as something being done upon others, not necessarily something that we can do to ourselves, but we actually have the capacity to survey ourselves. Oftentimes when people use the specific term self-surveillance, it's commonly used within psychology to refer to the misogynistic standards that are placed upon women, which often cause them to operate not out of personal desire, but out of socialization and assimilation. A quote from ScienceDirect reads, "Self-surveillance has become conceptualized as the manifestation of self-objectification because it captures the habitual body monitoring that accompanies the adoption of an observer's standpoints on one's own body." And to give a more concrete example of this, for example, there's been an ongoing debate for years about if a woman is just wearing lingerie on her own in her bedroom in the presence of no one, is that still self-surveillance? Many argue no, she's doing it for herself. She's not accompanied by anybody else. So who can she actually be appealing to realistically? But a lot of people would go on to argue no, yes. Like the reason why she is wearing lingerie is based off of the societal standards that have placed upon her to be desirable at all moments and all times.
I know I would definitely be in the latter group. I will always believe that preferences do not exist in a vacuum. And I think, again, women's relationship with beauty standards is actually a perfect example of knowing that a standard has been set by society and wanting to basically reach that goal regardless of whoever's watching, and to even convince yourself that you are worthy by these metrics.
For sure. Even another example is like women going to the gym, even if they don't have any direct goals related to health, like lowering their blood pressure or like losing specific type of like their visceral fat. Like they're doing it to keep up with a certain body image that's reflected in the media, not necessarily for their personal wants or desires. And obviously it gets hard because like we're all socialized in a society. So it can often be a very, very blurry line between what you actually want and desire and then like what's been placed upon you. And sadly, sometimes it's hard. We'll never know. Like, I guess we'll never know. But other definitions of self-surveillance also include just collecting data about your personal behaviors and surroundings to get a better understanding of how you live and what goes on around you. And this can be used to assess your habits, establish new ones, learn more about yourself in order to construct an ideal life. And it can be a really useful tool to understand more about yourself, but it can also become very negative and lead to a vicious and destructive cycle of self-criticism and guilt when you're constantly consuming what you're doing and putting yourself up to a microscope. But our podcast today is going to specifically focus on self-surveillance in the new digital age, because self-surveillance is now becoming more and more of a term to describe the ways in which we post, share, and record our personal lives for other people's consumptions. And I had found this really interesting study that has shown that, so we have these people who are high self-surveillance individuals and people who are low self-surveillance individuals. And basically, high self-surveillance individuals' behaviors on different social networking sites is considered to be externally oriented, which means it is focused on satisfying others' interests in the things that they post, share, and consume consume. And low self-surveillance individuals' behaviors is more internally oriented, meaning that their posts more reflect their personal feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. And high self-surveillance individuals are also more likely to be very utilitarian in the type of relationships that they pursue. They're more likely to get into relationships because they want something out of it, or there are specific things that they desire from that person, while low self-surveillance individuals are more likely to actually be emotionally invested in relationships. And high self-surveillance individuals also have a more heterogeneous social network because they have specific situations and tasks in which they need different kinds of people, while low self-surveillance individuals just have more homogenous networks, and they tend to choose friends based off of similar attitudes, interests, and feelings. Out of curiosity, Gold, I wanted to ask you where along the spectrum would you classify yourself?
It's so funny because I'm low self-surveillance.
I
know. Like my family members and friends force me to take photos. I don't know. Like I just feel like it kind of just aligns with the type of person that I am. And I actually feel like when I did have social media and I did like actually have an Instagram, I was more like taking photos and recording certain aspects of my life more from the lens of how other people are going to perceive me instead of how I will be looking back at my own memories. And I just think at a certain point, I'm just like, this is my phone and a photo of me and my memories. And I'm just like, I'm literally letting social media like bully me into acting a certain way. And obviously, I'm sure there's like avenues to prioritize yourself even while having social media. But for me, I was just kind of like, it's just the best that I don't even have the pressure of feeling like there's eyes on me as I'm trying to live my life.
Yeah, no, this study was really interesting, and it's linked in the required reading as always, guys. Check it out. But they actually go on to classify 4 different user profiles, ranging from like the introvert to the passive user and like different things like that. But yeah, definitely very interesting, and like very much one of those things where it's like it correlates with things that I already believed, but having actual like statistical data about it was really cool to look at. But now let's get into Snapchat, because we've talked about it a lot, and she was a girl that was previously unseen before. Okay, a new girl that rose to the top very quickly, but also dropped really
some
quickly.
Tables, honestly. Like it's not common that we actually see a new form of social media sharing stick the way Snapchat did, and it ushered in a new wave of short form content.
For sure. And it's a huge social media network. It was founded in 2011 by Stanford students, although that in itself was messy. Okay, it has its own very contentious origins. Also, fun fact, it used to be called like Peekaboo because of the concept of like a messaging platform that had disappearing messages, photos, and videos, which I think was kind of cute. I kind of liked Peekaboo.
I think it was cute, but I think they made the right move as people actually started to use it.
Also, did you know that Poke from like Facebook was supposed to be a direct competitor of Snapchat, which is crazy to me.
I did not, but also I just don't know. Like my birth year starts with a 2.
We were very young.
Like I have never poked somebody.
I heard of it, but like it was always something that people were using in jest. Like people would make fun of the actions of poking someone, which is why after 2 years they closed down in like 2013 because they couldn't keep competing with Snapchat.
It was only 2 years. You know what? Yeah.
Yeah. The Snapchat became incredibly popular even though it was founded in 2011, it was really between the years of 2013 and 2015 when it really just exploded on the scene and immediately became widely used across social platforms. And listen, it is still incredibly popular today. Snapchat has 443 million daily active users who use Snapchat every single day on average. It has 850 million monthly active users. It has over 300 million daily users who engage with some sort of augmented reality every day. So think the lens. Okay, shout out to the doggy filter. Shout out to the little flower crown. And over 75% of the 13 to 34-year-olds in over 25 countries use Snapchat. I don't know what Snapchat Snapchat Pluses, but there's also over 12 million Snapchat Pluses. I think it lets you see like other people's like top friends and stuff like that.
Dang, they just giving out our information for
Like
nothing.
this girl was like, yeah, get Snapchat Plus, it's only $3.99, and I got to see that I was #1 on his like most snap list, and I'm like, girl, sometimes it's okay to just stop texting that man. Like
sometimes it's time to block.
Like if it's that serious, maybe it's time to just put it down. But Snapchat was very unique in that it offered real-time updates into a person's life. I felt like, and maybe this is just me, but other apps like Facebook and Instagram felt like they were designed with a very specific intent in mind. Like, it's to keep up with old college friends or random acquaintances. You know, you post your little coffee mug and your Ugg boots as like autumn creeps in, and it just felt a lot slower, you know, and a lot more structured in the way they went about it. Snapchat, she allowed instant gratification. Okay, like you can easily share your photos and your messages, and it's also with a very curated inner circle that's granted access into your personal life. To me, Snapchat in many ways was a really good example of a social network, like taking it from real life onto social media platform, because it's very visual, and to me that plays out a lot with the dynamics we see in real life, and it's like you yourself are demonstrating yourself going about your daily life, and the individuals who are on your story or who come into contact with you are going to take that information in and use it to further their understanding of you. And this info can make them like you more, it could make them like you less, it could make them see your conventional attractive or unattractiveness, because we see that a lot of the people who got really popular with Snapchat were very conventionally attractive. You can form direct one-on-one connections like through messaging people, or gain access to an exclusive Snap group, or you could be left out of these groups or social circles. I know many a drama was caused by like, oh, you're not in that group chat, girl.
Or what's getting me is like, this person is your #1 best friend, but you are not theirs. Yeah, I definitely think Snapchat arrived on the scene at the right time, though. I feel like the millennials, Gen like X, boomers, like they would not have been fully ready to handle what Snapchat had in store. But I feel like for a more like techie generation that grew up and is just much more comfortable with having communication or community through technology, it was very on time for that. And it just it helped you feel like you could still have a connection with somebody and still hang out with somebody despite the fact that they're not actually there, which is just not the vibe that was coming from other apps.
For sure. Like Snapchat allowed communication across borders, and I felt like for me it really, and Twitter does this a bit too, but Snapchat kind of was like, okay, you're not popular or well liked in real life, no shade, but welcome to the internet, like where you can connect with anybody. Okay, like I used to be talking to people that lived in Florida. I ain't never been like, what? Like, you know, and it's just like people across the nation, even people across the world that you could become Snapchat friends with and talk to and share your daily life with. And all of a sudden, maybe if you didn't feel like you had community in real life, well, maybe you've got community on the internet. And think about some of the biggest social media influencers of all time. They were using Snapchat on an incredibly regular basis.
It was insane.
Like, think Kylie Jenner. I think of different rappers and rapper baby mamas. Like, I'm thinking Jada Waita. Like, I'm thinking of a lot of different, even just like early social media influencers who Snapchat was a big part of their rotation back in the day, even if it might not be anymore. And to me, it was just really the start of video content that kind of places the user at the center of the universe, and they are disseminating themselves outward. They are disseminating their literal likeness outward. They are disseminating their views outward. They're disseminating their activities and social participations outwards. And listen, Snapchat had her moment, but in recent years, migration to new social media apps like TikTok and competition from not so sneaky lookalikes like Instagram stories has really started to chip away at the platform's user base. And listen, Snapchat is technically actively growing, but a lot of that growth is mostly coming from an overseas market, specifically not North America or Europe. Like daily users in North America are actually slightly decreasing. For example, from like 2023 to 2024, they dropped a little bit.
Yeah, and they've tried to have revival efforts, but it's almost kind of like pathetic. I don't know. It's kind of like watching that one sports player who was just really good when you could just tell he's on an athletic decline and he's just never gonna be what he used to be. Like when y'all held my eyes open and forced me to watch that Jake Paul fight. But it's just like they are obviously buying celebrities like time and kind of forcing them to post on Snapchat stories. Like even modern day Snapchat has like the Snapchat spotlight where they pay celebrities and influencers to post as an attempt to kind of revive the app. And I've definitely seen some random celebrities, random influencers that I haven't seen on Snapchat in who knows how long, all of a sudden posting like hours of content on stories for no Jada
like I was see like they'll just be randomly posting them like random selfies that sometimes I know are years old, like selfies I know were not taken that day, and I'm like, they're paying you to use the app, huh? Like
they don't even try to hide it.
Child. Like, and you can also definitely see they're trying to rely on nostalgia through the use of like the flashbacks. Like they definitely want to call people back to like a social media golden era. Like, and I also feel like it doesn't help that a lot of those years, like think about the way people talked about 2016 for a long time, you know? Like I do associate the dog crown and the flower crown with like specific eras. And I feel like those were eras that people did like a lot. So I think they know that and they're using flashbacks. And especially too, like with older Gen Z kind of starting to come out of college and then millennials as well. Like they're definitely calling back to times when they were younger, probably had more like social connections. Like, yeah.
But the thing is, as much as we joan on Snapchat and as much as I think their actual methodology for getting these influencers to like force themselves to post on the app, I don't think they're too far off by utilizing influencer culture as like a means to an end of trying to get the everyday person back into a specific type of self-surveillance. Because while influencer culture may not be thriving on Snapchat specifically, in the new frontiers that they've moved on to, like Instagram stories and TikTok and even like YouTube and vlogging, it seems to be doing just fine. Like vlogging culture actually became mainstream in the US before we even had Snapchat in 2010. And we basically normalized people recording their entire lives. Like I even
shout out to YouTube.
And we have so many different types of vloggers. Like we would have couple vloggers, we would have like lifestyle vloggers. I literally remember like a very popular couple. I think their name was like BF versus GF. And they were together for like 7+ years. And they ended up breaking up and cited the constant need to record every day of their lives as one of the biggest reasons why things fizzled out between them, because that's just a lot. And I think that's just content that people wanted to see, and also content that was inspiring people. And there's also been other ways where you could tell that people are definitely like putting on a show and acting as if those are watching them instead of just being themselves. And we see it oftentimes with the vocal fry influencer voice.
Okay, guys, so today I'm going to be going to Erewhon. Come with me.
Guys, there is this new restaurant that just opened up in north, south, east, western Chicago, Soho, like New York, Brooklyn, somewhere. And you guys have to try it. Run, don't walk to this new Thai fusion sushi smoothie bar boba
extravaganza.
Italian era, you know, and then like, okay, girl.
And if you, and it's always run, not walk. They swear everything is the greatest product ever. Like, guy, everything is their holy grail. Absolutely everything. Ugh, Lord.
And the thing is, again, like there is a method to the madness. Like it is shown that certain voices, being overly excited about things, and just generally being an animated person does help platform retention. And, you know, it grabs people's attention when they're just mindlessly scrolling through 100+ TikToks over and over and over again. Like, what is something that's going to make me want to stop? Definitely not somebody who's monotonous with nothing fun going on in their actual, like, visual sphere, just sitting in their room. So, you know, I get it. But it's just like, as much as I understand their desire to do the best that they can for their metrics and engage the most amount of people, that brand of influencing and the like trickle down from vlogging to now short form lifestyle influencers has just ballooned our like current issue with self-surveillance, because people do have the desire to, follow what influencers are doing. And we've even seen a shift from people who were influencers for something specific, like being a makeup influencer, or being a hair influencer, or you talk about data, you talk about history, to just being a broadly applied lifestyle influencer. Because one, not only is that the content that people want to watch, it's the one that is has the most brand deals available, because you haven't pigeonholed yourself. And, I actually wanted to talk about this one drag queen, Taipei queen, who is on TikTok and Instagram. Honestly, just as a whole, you guys should check her out. She's very cool and talks a lot about history, math, data, and, she has interesting things about COVID. But one thing that really grabbed my eye was how a large part of the impact of people's social media presence was about Instagram's aspect ratio. And when it was like 1-to-1 square for basically almost everything, back in the day, like before they even had Reels or any other thing like that, how there was such a focus on makeup influencers in the beauty sphere. And we literally still call it 2016 makeup. There's also such a focus in having very bright, shiny, out there makeup, because that was the type of makeup that would photograph the best in Instagram's aspect ratio. So that's the makeup that people decided to do, and that's how they decided to live their life. And that was consciously or subconsciously influencing the makeup they desire. However, now that Instagram allows for Reels and also more rectangular photos in their aspect ratio, we have now seen a switch to more clean girl makeup, a switch to fashion and hair and nails, and just overall lifestyle and aesthetic as the main thing that people are desiring to change about themselves and to express to the world. And it's just this is a very, to me, astute observation about how social media and our ability to fit in and be cool and work well with the algorithm is impacting people's actual lifestyle choices.
I've talked a lot about Jordan Teresa specifically, and she's like a, what do you call it, video essay YouTuber. Yeah. And she also talked about how the change in different beauty standards and social media standards over time has kind of led to we're in this era where natural is more, and people are more likely to wear certain outfits that show off their body and show off their specific shape. Also wearing less makeup, because it's no longer about the products that you can buy, but what does your natural skin look like? And that's something that you can't easily emulate. A new frontier for rich people and upper class people to move on to demonstrate that they kind of have a monopoly on social attractiveness.
And just another thing for everybody else to aspire to and change their wants and their desires to be molded towards trying to fit in that box. I mean, I feel like photo dumps are a perfect example of this. It's kind of that was the original way that these meta apps like Facebook and Instagram was supposed to be used to share different aspects of your life. But they kind of, again, died down when people wanted to focus more on seeming cool and stuff like that. And now that they've come back, but it feels like they're just wearing somebody else's skin. It's very eerie in a way that photo dumps are kind of paradoxical, because at first they were supposed to be just showing a very good and realistic conglomerate of what your life is like, but now they're incredibly aesthetic, they're incredibly carefully curated in order to instead of showing what your life is like and giving people a peek into you, it's kind of very carefully creating how you want people to view you and how you want people to understand you.
Yeah, I definitely have heard a lot of people complain, especially people who were on social media, I guess earlier, and kind of experienced like Instagram before it became a lot more of an aestheticized platform, they are constantly talking about how they want to go back to the golden age of Instagram, where it was just like you would really like, it wasn't even like curated messiness, because that's what a lot of these dumps are giving. Like they still want to give off quirky girl, they still want to give off, you know, I'm just like, I woke up like this, but it's definitely with the air of like somebody else seeing it, versus like in the olden days, like that really was the picture, like that was
my
it.
favorite thing is when people pull up like celebrity tweets and Instagram posts from like 10 plus years ago, where they would be out here saying anything, okay, just typing and tweeting with reckless abandon, not a PR person in sight, because it wasn't that deep, serious, like, it just wasn't. And you know, it's just weird because like I don't know if we'll ever be able to return to that. Like,
no, I definitely feel that, and this has been happening for a long time, but I think people have become a lot more accustomed to kind of crafting a certain persona to exist online and on social networks. And I think this is especially ringing true post-COVID, considering lockdown and literally like your only form of social connection was like through social media and the internet. But they are becoming more accustomed to this than they are even in real life. And this is especially a huge problem for Gen Z and younger. We talk a lot about the declining social skills of this generation and how people don't know how to have small talk anymore. People don't know how to have conversations. People don't want to connect with people in their communities. And it's just really sad to see young people who should technically be at or approaching the peak of their social connection retreating to online personas instead of forging real world connections with others. And, you know, not to be like unbiased, like there's a variety of factors, like that's the loss of third spaces, that's the suburbanization of American society, the lack of time and or money to pursue hobbies or entertainment. People who don't go to college have less friends, which is another form of like classism. I mean, Gold and I have talked a lot about how it is so expensive to just go out and have fun nowadays.
Literally. I remember even being younger and my mom would just always tell me anytime I thought she was kind of being unreasonable with her spending. She got a shopping problem, but that's a whole other conversation. She would just always look at me and be like, it's expensive to socialize. Like, it's expensive to socialize. And it's just like, whether she's right or not, I really do think she has a point, but I just hate the fact that that's true. And then now when you're adding this added layer of self-surveillance and wanting to come off a certain way to others and having some kind of fear that if you don't, like what that will mean for you, it just trickles from social media and back into our real life experiences. You know, like people don't want to dance in the club because who wants to be recorded by somebody else and then post and let that embarrassing moment of you when you were offbeat be immortalized? People don't want to get in the water when they're like on vacation because they want to make sure that they get their beach photos first. Like it just trickles and continuously affects the way people decide to live their life because they're always living their life with another person in mind.
No, literally, when everything you do is done with an audience in mind, like it really is hard to know yourself and your individual desires because it's all a performance. It's all a performance. And can you really sit down, like sit in a chair, take a deep breath, take out your phone, go on Snapchat, LOL, and like just sit and like, what are you going to say to the camera? You don't know because you don't have a specific audience in mind. And this isn't always necessarily a social media thing. Humans are very social creatures. We adapt, we evolve, and we kind of take in cues from our environment in order to pivot and navigate ourselves. But it's definitely becoming an increasing thing. And that self-surveillance part kind of comes in because people are recording and analyzing and disseminating incredibly vulnerable and personal moments in their lives. Shout out to that lady who recorded herself taking her makeup off on her wedding day because she didn't like it, and that sparked a whole social media discussion.
Yeah. And again, like it's so weird because I feel like it's also become paradoxical in the sense that everybody knows that everybody is performing, so then it becomes uncomfortable to perform. Like people always say like, why does it feel so embarrassing to post on Instagram these days? Like it almost like feels like weird to want to like actually like post your little photos of you looking cute, because I feel like at this point everybody's caught on to the fact that everybody else has some kind of constant persona of.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely like, I know now that there is an audience, and the audience is expecting me to look a certain way and to assimilate a certain way. And any like small little deviation from that is going to cause judgment, because that's what a lot of y'all are motivated by too, is judgment, fear, and shame. But it's important to understand that when you have those stricter standards for yourself in terms of the online persona that you curate and what you want to be perceived as, that just reinforces that for everybody. It means that everybody is dealing with the anxiety and the fear, and everybody is scared to go on social platforms and be themselves, because they know that other people potentially might embarrass them, might immortalize some of their worst moments online.
Yeah, and we're not even saying these feelings aren't natural. Like, obviously, we are social creatures. We live in a society. Judgment, fear, and shame, that drives so much of human behavior. Like, but it's just like, you become a shell of yourself when you prescribe and submit to these things. I feel like the perfect example of this is Catfish by Yaniv Shilton.
What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty good man.
Insane thing to say about Yaniv Shilton.
Anyways, Gold and I have been watching Catfish for you. Like, I can't even explain to the listeners at home the lore behind the show for us. Like,
exactly. And honestly, it's so funny because at this point we have seen so many cases of different people catfishing for different reasons, or people who aren't even catfishing but definitely have something about their online persona that's just a little bit different than who they actually are in real life. And it's just like, this show really exemplifies what occurs when there is pressure for, again, self-surveillance and an Instagram forward society where that is representing who you are more than who you actually are in person. At a certain point, there are people who, for one reason or another, are not going to be able to fit the conventional standards, but still desire what you get when you do perform well. So they just kind of do a whole 180 and abandon trying to paint their own life as something that's good and great and amazing, and just kind of create from scratch with other people's photos, other people's stories, a new life for themselves. And, you know, it's unfortunate because I feel like a lot of times when people do come out as a catfish on the show and they ask them about their friends, their family, their life aspirations, their career, a lot of these things are lacking and just completely underdeveloped because they have given all of their time and wants and their desires towards funding their fake social media life.
For sure. I think that I feel the same way about stan culture as well, and just like parasocial relationships. But that is a topic for another episode of The Kids Are Really Just Not All Right. I think more than anything, there's a good documentary on Netflix called Join or Die, and it goes into the bowling alley theory by this one social like scientist. And basically he has been like looking at trends across different decades of American civil participation, and it's not looking good for us. Okay, like, people are no longer bowling, and like, it's not because they don't want to bowl. Like, people are bowling, but they're bowling alone. Like, they're not bowling with other people, and that's what generates actually the majority of revenue for bowling alleys, is the food that people get when they come together or in a club or with a party. We're seeing weaker labor unions. We're seeing decreases in churches and religious organizations, just a decrease in every single aspect of overall social participation. And that's why I really encourage reading the required reading for this episode, because I felt like it was very informative. I assume most, if not all, of the listeners of this podcast participate in some form of social network. And I think it's just really understand to kind of dive into the psychology behind why we do the things that we do, how these companies are often also using specific business practices to reel us in and kind of capitalizing off of these social standards that they set and enforce course, and just having like an accurate picture of self-image and the different ways that we can contribute to our own self-surveillance through how we engage with these social networks. And overall, that will just allow you to be a more informed social media user and overall person. So make sure to remain curious, remain educated, and always remain critical. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of VS. Bye.